for a moment, you told me a little story about how your parents and your grandparents worked on a farm and the way they thought, their mentality. Can you maybe talk a little bit about that, and maybe how did that impact your life, and has it impacted your life?
Sure, no, definitely. So you whittled me down in Barcelona over a couple days, and I started divulging. It's what I do in the interviews.
Take these drinks. No,
yeah, I whittle them down for the first hour, and then the good stuff comes later. So, look, as a father now, and my son Caden is almost 4 months old. I think he's just turned 4 months on the 25th. You know, it makes me think more about parenting and fatherhood and everything. So I'm thinking, what are the messages he's getting from me? And I think, what are the messages he's getting from me that are uncommunicated? And so I always think about my father and my grandparents, and what are the messages that I got that were uncommunicated. And let's be honest, 99% of the parenting you get is just what you see, right? And what you observe, and sometimes what you don't observe. And so I remember I interviewed my dad, and I actually did it at the Chateau Marmont Hotel, not to name drop, but I was there in Hollywood. And this is before London Real started, and I was out there in LA, and my dad came up to see me from San Diego, and we decided to go to Caltech, which is where he went to school, and it's one of the best, almost as good as MIT. They're like rival schools on East and West Coast. And he went there for electrical engineering. Some of the smartest people in the world went to Caltech. The founders of Intel went there. Guys from the Jet Propulsion Laboratory that put rockets on the moon, et cetera, went there. And so he went there, and I interviewed him in the suite at the Chateau Marmont. And this is actually probably the first London Real episode. Although I interviewed my grandpa when I was 10 years old, and that probably was the first London Real episode, actually. And I will post that on YouTube. And I walked around Caltech with my dad as well, and we filmed it. Mariana filmed it. So this was actually the first moving conversation as well. And I put that in the interview. And at one point, I asked my dad, because he was a farm boy in Arizona, okay, super smart, and he went to Caltech. And his first freshman year at Caltech, he got all D's. D in math, D and D and D. After his whole high school, he was the smartest kid in the class, taking apart transistor radios, building brains in his bedroom, all that stuff. Got D's, and I said, Dad, I put, again, empathy. What does it feel like as a 19-year-old kid? You're away from your parents, you're at this school full of these brainiacs, and I'd been there before at MIT, and all of a sudden, you're horrible, you suck. And I said, Dad, did you ever think about quitting? And he said, never. And I was like, why? And my dad said, on the farm, if you quit, you die. And he's like, there's no quit. It makes me almost get emotional. And what he meant was this: when my grandpa, he was in Oklahoma, and he went west, right? And all he had was nothing in his pocket and some land he could get. And he had to work that land to live. And so you can't quit, or literally you starve and you die. And so being out on the farm is like, that's real talk, more than this. And you're out there for a year with these crops. And I saw my grandpa. My grandpa had no toes on his right foot, okay? Because they got chopped off by a windmill when he was doing barley one day. Chopped off. I think there was no hospital anywhere near it, no painkillers. It was like, I don't know, they drove him like 12 hours before they could even do anything. He never said anything about it, right? He would never even show us his toes. He always had like a sock that was flopped over. Like, that's the kind of guy he was. And he would work these fields, and there's no quit. And if it rains or suns or shines, and you have to dig these things up at the end of the year, and if you don't have enough food to feed your family, you die. And so my dad was taught as a kid, like, there's no quit. You get up every morning, you work those fields because there's no other option. There's no unemployment, there's no nothing. And so I realized that I got this message as a kid, and in my dad, there's no quit. And so there's no complaining. And so both of my grandpas, one was a farmer, one was a cattle rancher. They never complained, never talked about a boss that did this. No one ever screwed them over. They never complained anything. They just woke up in the morning, they worked hard, and they made it happen. And that was it. And so my dad saying that made me really realize really what my character's all about, because I was around them as a kid. And so again, I was never told not to quit. I was never told to work hard. I just saw them do it, and I saw them never do the opposite. And so that was like a big lesson I learned from my dad. And again, my dad's one of the most incredible people ever, but he never had to say, Brian, you never quit. Brian, la la la. He just is my dad, and he leads by example. And so I think, how am I going to teach my son Caden by example? I'm probably on the other end. I'm probably going to be like, Caden, you got to do this. But hopefully he'll see something in me and his grandparents that shows him this is how we live. You know, we come from hard times. We come from where you had to make things happen on your own. You were never given anything. The land was there. Are you going to do it or are you not? Are you going to complain? Well, what's the excuse on a farm? There's no excuse. You got to make it happen. And so, yeah, that's something I learned from my dad. And I think it's in me, even though I look like a California boy or a guy in a suit here in London or a banker. But I think deep down inside me, my Rose roots and my Benedict roots kind of taught me that there's, I don't know, some deep meaning in those family ties. So, yeah.
So, and is that a reason why you left the farm? Was it maybe too hard, and did you want to leave it?
So my dad moved to the California, to go to Caltech, and so I grew up in San Diego. So I didn't grow up anywhere near a farm. I would visit in the summer, and I was the city kid who was scared of the horse. Right? And my cousins were like, why are you scared of a horse? I'm like, because they're big and they could kick you in the head. So same with cows. I was like, what's that cow? But I could see kind of what the living was like, but I was never that farm guy. What I did know is I wanted to get the heck out of San Diego. And I think a lot of kids feel that way, is that they want to get the hell out of their circumstances as soon as possible. And so for me, I was like, I got to get out of this town. And Boston was as far away as you could get in San Diego. It was a 6-hour flight. And I was like, I want to go all the way over there where there's an urban environment, where they have subways, where they have things happening, weather, and there was a school there that could really push me. So that's why I went there. But I still think there's just some of those middle America deep values in there somewhere. But again, no one taught me that. And my mom was the same way, just hardworking, goal-setting people, and I guess entrepreneurial, cattlemen, farmer, they were really entrepreneurs running their own businesses their whole lives. And I think that was kind of instilled in me. So I'm very fortunate.
All right.
Yeah.
Continue watching this fascinating conversation for free by clicking on the link below to visit our website, learn from the best minds in the world, and connect with a community of passionate people building the best versions of themselves. Just click on the link below, and I'll see you on the inside.